Metropolitan Water District of Southern California is the largest in the nation, 20 million customers, most of L.A., Orange, Ventura, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties, San Diego as well.
The good news is Metropolitan and its 26 member agencies have worked hard over the last number of years, over the last 100 years, mainly last decade. But that doesn't change what we need to do. We're seeing drier days, we're seeing reduced amount of water, the supply is shrinking. What we need to do now, look for the future. And that's really what I come in, is start working on a plan moving forward to increase and double down on local water supply, increasing recycled water, increasing stormwater capture, addressing groundwater. We need to diversify our water for Southern California, for our region. We need to work across the state and with our partners in the Colorado Basin on how we're going to manage water.
Yes, indeed, that brings us to session number 5. 19 million people, 26 agencies. Will the plan serve all? Is slightly different than our last 4 sessions. We'll hear from the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California's General Manager, Adel Haji Khalil, and an extended portion of time will be devoted to having your questions answered live. Thank you to PCL Construction for sponsoring this important session. Please welcome to the stage Adel Haji Khalil and event co-chairs Stephen Sheldon and Jeffrey Thomas, who will lead the Q&A portion. Gents?
Hey, Jeff. It's good to see you.
Hello. It's great to see all of you. Great to be home in Orange County. I'm glad to see my mayor, Orange County Director and Mayor Bruce Whitaker here. And great to be in this great event, and it's amazing. Let's just give everyone who's taken part of making this success a big hand.
Yeah, I do.
You know, I'm honored actually to be here, and I want to thank Orange County Water District, MODOC, and everyone, and all the member agencies, and everyone who's been here for inviting me to speak to you. I'm the one between you and lunch, and I think I'm the one between me and lunch. So I'll be to the point, and I just want to talk about the future. I heard some great things today. I've learned a lot from the panelists and what we need to do. I'm an engineer by training, and engineers think systematically. And I'll say I'm a different engineer. I mean, I use the analysis and the data and the information, but I look at different directions. And the future we need today is a future that's diverse, a future that builds on people, a future that looks at integration, new ideas. And to me, this is what I bring to the table. The 3 I's that I use all the time, the integration, innovation, and inclusion. Those are the anchors of what I call the One Water planning for the future that we will do together. Because in Metropolitan was created 100 years ago to build on the collaborative that we have done, all of us across our 6 counties, 20 million people. We came together to build the future, to bring water into our region for the economy, for the people to thrive. And as you know, it was brought in and said, here we go. As Mulholland said, when the LA Aqueduct was turned on, he said, here's the water, take it. And I think we have a responsibility today is to conserve it, to take care of it, and to find new ways to protect it. And so we have a Mulholland moment ahead of us. We have a Mulholland moment for us, a second Mulholland moment for all of you, for all of us, to really help the next 100 years have resilient water for the future. I'm proud to have a great board in Metropolitan, diverse board. And when I just acknowledge the board members who are here, I see all of them from Orange County. Thank you, directors, Inland Empire, Camacho. I have LA here, Miguel Luna, and I have David DeJesus and others. I want to thank him for really, 2 weeks ago, we had a great retreat in Temecula. And really we, sat down and started reimagining the future and talking about how we're gonna deal with the drought, how we're gonna deal with the climate change. We heard Greg talk about, the shrinking water supply that we have. Basically, our reservoirs in the snowpack are gone, and we need to find ways. So our board sat down, and I'm gonna work with them on how we can develop the future, the one water future for all of us, to serve you, to ensure when we turn the tap, water comes out. We need to address resiliency, sustainability, dealing with climate action, but also affordability. We can't forget our underserved communities, our under-resourced communities. So how we can bring all of us together. It's humbling. It's a heavy weight to be here to really have this, but I'm honored to be part of this effort. I want to just talk a little bit before I get into the future. I want to talk about some of the great things that you have done, the great things that you have accomplished. You saw the panels that came before us and what they've done across the region. It's the water we're using today is the same water we've used 40 years ago. But still, 50% of the water we use here is imported from somewhere else. So we need to continue this effort and what we need to do. But we actually have done great work in storage. And you heard about banking. Metropolitan started the year with 3.2 million acre-feet of water. We import roughly about 1.6 million acre-feet of water. So we've built the infrastructure, back in 2000 when we had Diamond Valley Lake, which is bigger than Lake Havasu, to really help us in dealing with this. But I think this is the time to even double down on storage, because I think we need to do more on it and build our reserves. You've talked about the future when we have rain, and we have the State Water Project. Yes, we need to invest in fixing the infrastructure on the State Water Project, because when the water comes down, we need to be able to store it and keep it and have it in place. So I support storage all over our system. And what we need to do is build connectivity and the ability to connect systems and move water around. And that's going to be critical. When I took this job and I started learning more about what's going on in our system, I did not know that some of our parts of our region are dependent on one source of water, especially on the western parts of our service area. And to me, that's not acceptable in today's time. We cannot allow this to happen. And we cannot let every member agency be on their own. We can't let any water agency be on their own trying to figure this out. We all have to come together to do that. And I think for the last 20 years, I've sensed that we've been getting apart from each other, trying to figure out on our own, building the systems that we need to do to be resilient, because we're just nervous about reliance on this, collaborative. And I'm telling you today, MET is going to be here for you, each and every one of you, everyone in our service area. We need to make sure that we are planning for the future, fixing the infrastructure, creating a new local water supply, building storage, building resiliency, and finding a way how to ensure that everybody's taken care of. And we know when we do it together, the economy of scale will help us. That's how we can do it together. And we have underserved communities, disadvantaged communities. Metropolitan started a caucus on underserved communities, and hopefully we'll have a committee focus on how we take care of our underserved communities. Because if we're going to invest in our infrastructure, we need to make sure it doesn't impact the communities that are suffering. And the way we do it is really remove obstacles from the rebate program, remove obstacles and do direct install for low-income communities, underserved communities, so they can provide benefit in conservation. PFAS, the PFAS treatment you talked about here, that's an underserved community issue. Imagine if communities and smaller cities lose their groundwater because of PFAS. The alternative is to bring in imported water. the cost will be a shock to the ratepayers. And our job, and I just applaud Orange County for working with their member agencies and cities to really go after the treatment. Because, in my city, in Fullerton, the cheapest water is groundwater. Instead of import water. And if we're not doing a job ourselves in helping take care of this treatment and the protection of groundwater, our need, the demand on our imported water will increase. And the cost and the impact on our communities will increase. So I will be working with my board on ways to leverage our local research program to help invest in clean water, in groundwater cleanups, and PFAS treatments, because I think that's critical for all of us to work. And I know all of us want to do the right thing. But also we need to put our federal and state government on the hook. We need them to invest in us, and we need them to invest in our resiliency. We have done our job here, but investing in Southern California is investing in the entire state of California. It's an investing in the entire Southwest. It's a homeland security issue. It's our economy, our population is dependent, and the federal government needs to step in. So next week I'm testifying in Congress how important the regional recycled water program and the investments in our efforts here is going to help us deal with the future. And we need to do that. So we're moving hard on new water supply. So as we finish our integrated resource plan that looked at the scenarios, we'll talk more about it, we're launching a One Water plan. And it's going to really look at how to connect the dots and drops. To me, we need to find where is the gap in supply, where is the opportunity for storage, and how we move water around. So we're going to have an implementation plan between now and 2045 of what we need to do to provide resilient water, to create local water supply, to protect our investments both on the Colorado and the State Water Project, and how we build this connectivity so we can move water around. Right now, we're struggling trying to find how we can move Colorado water west into our region. We are moving quickly on coming up with quick fixes and long-term fixes, but also our recycled water program. And I was just chatting with Mike. One of the things that hurts us a lot is the branding. We call our projects different names. I'm going to challenge all of us. Let's just use one thing. Let's call Recycled Water Program Recharge Pure Water Orange County, Pure Water San Diego, Pure Water LA, Pure Water Las Virgenes. When you start using the same word, our customers will get used to it, and they say, this is good. If it's Orange County's, that has to be really good. So let's build on the successes that you have done so we can take it and replicate that everywhere, right? That's something that we all need to make sure, because acceptance of the public is critical. And that's really something that I will work hard on. Our future is going to be a puzzle that we're going to put together. And I'm going to work really hard on working with the member agencies, the stakeholders, the business community of how we move forward. And I tell people we're going to make the tent big, and we're going to invite everyone inside the tent. We can't fight. And I heard the peace word. We need to have peace across our region. The environmental community has to be a partner with us. And we can work together, but it can't happen overnight. But we need to listen to each other, develop a plan that's comprehensive. We're talking about, I know you heard Jennifer talk about the voluntary agreements. I believe voluntary agreements are a good thing for us, because what it does, it gives us certainty. It starts investing in restoration in the Delta. It gives us a plan forward to use science to help us inform and have an iterative, adaptive process to start moving forward. To me, it's all about collaboration and trust. We need to trust each other. We need to respect each other, and we need to come together. I want to just, as we talk about underserved communities, I want to just share a fact that's something we need to ask the federal government and the state government to think hard about helping in providing also subsidy and investments in low-income communities. And we are also working on workforce development, creating wealth in communities through contracting. Those are things that we're going to be working really hard. Our board chair and our board approved a statement for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that's really a great thing for all of us. But if you look in 2015, what was invested in low-income communities in California, $7 billion for food, $2 billion for energy subsidy, $720 million for telephone subsidy, and $150 million for water subsidy. There's something wrong here. There's something wrong with this. Water is number one. You can't get food without water. You can't get energy without water. You can't get anything without water. So somehow we have a responsibility, all of us, to elevate the value of water. And next week, October 21st, is Imagine a Day Without Water. Let's all get the word out. I'll tell you, I'll challenge all of you. Do one thing next week. Call an assembly member, call a senator, call a congressman, call a mayor. I already talked to my mayor here, so I'm okay. You know, do something about water. Elevate that to the next level, because we need funding. We all talked about funding, right? Everybody talked about the 3 I's, right? Integration, innovation, inclusion that I talk about. I'm adding a 4th one, investment, money, and we need to advocate for this. So I'm going to testify next week to make sure that the money for large local recycled water projects that are part of the reconciliation bill is not taken out. Because investment in Southern California is an investment on all of us, and we need to double down on that and continue working hard. Conservation, we've done something good, but we need to continue doubling down on it. So we've really doubled down on messaging. We're going to do more rebates, so we're going to increase the rebate for turf removal from $2 to $3, expand the area that's eligible from 50,000 square feet to 200,000 square feet. We're going to be looking at leaky pipes, because that's an important element of really reducing our loss of water, because you heard about the loss of water we have in our system, but also locally in our system. How can we invest to basically reduce our loss of water? We're going to be looking at providing information and technology for folks to measure what's happening and the use in their system. But also, there is non-functional turf that we need to talk about. I know our member agency in Eastern, I know Joe is here, Joe Mawad, and Director Record is working really hard on really changing the game on what we do with non-functional turf, as Nevada has done. So this plan on One Water, it's going to connect what I call the dots, drops, and hearts. It's going to look for the gap that we have and find where do we need to address this gap and how. And it's going to be a roadmap to invest, a roadmap for policies, a roadmap for action. And we're going to be tracking it over time to either act on it, or adjust it, and move forward with it. So it's going to be exciting times, and I ask you to really, really open your minds, open your hearts. I'm going to extend my arm to each and every one of you, my hand to each and every one of you. And if you have any idea, any thoughts of what you said, what needs to be done that Met can do for you, please reach out to us. Let us know your ideas, because we can't do it alone. We are here to work with you. Met exists because of the member agencies and the member agencies of the member agencies and 19 million people we serve. You know, we need a coordinated strategy for water in California, and that's something I'm stressing on the governor and their staff. We need a coordinated effort. We're doing our job. And to me, one of the things that we're doing is actually collaborating with people across our region and in the Southwest. You've read recently that we had agreements with Palo Verde, the Bureau of Reclamation, the Southern Nevada Water Authority, and the Central Arizona Project to invest money in Palo Verde so we can fallow land and conserve the use of water to have 180,000 acre-feet and put it back in Lake Mead. We just settled, the board of directors authorized me to settle, and we settled a lawsuit with the Imperial Irrigation District to really deal with that issue that, Imperial Irrigation has the largest water allocation on the Colorado, and they need to be partnered with us on the table. And if we cannot resolve litigation, we can't move forward. And we settled that litigation, and now we're moving forward, and we're supporting their funding for the Salton Sea restoration, and including Southern Nevada and Arizona. And when people talk about investments here, we say we're doing our work. We're doing the work that needs to be done, and we need everyone to help us, invest in us, and remove obstacles. I believe strongly that we need to think differently about emergency response and how we address the issues that we have before us. You know, my son, when he was 5, he came to me with a medal of Jackie Robinson. So it's baseball season, and yesterday was a great day for the Dodgers. I know there's some Anaheim Angels, hopefully soon. But we are one, right? We're all one. So he showed me, and it says on it, life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives, on others. And that's the message I carried all my life. When we talk about water, if we just talk about infrastructure, it's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people, right? What we do is about people. And that should be the North Star for all of us. We need to take care of people. We need to reach beyond our grasp, but lift everybody up. Take care of everyone to move forward. And I'm just honored, privileged to be able to be a small part in this solution. And I want each and every one of you to be part of this chain, strong chain that's going to carry us forward. And I'm honored to be able to be with you and to share my vision and my thoughts and the challenges we're dealing with. And I'll tell you, I'm so optimistic that in a year or two, you will have a clear vision of where we're going to go, and everyone's going to talk about us as they've talked for many years about how great we are for the future. So thank you very much, and look forward to your questions.
So that was great.
Right.
Let me get my chair here correctly. We're going to move on to some questions, and so Jeff and I have a couple, and then we wanted to get some from the audience. And Jeff, did you want to start off with the first question?
Just correct one thing. We are not all one in baseball. There is no way, man. The Dodgers are Dodgers, man. I've been a Dodger fan since I was 8. I know. It's sad. But I love it. Thank you for your presentation.
Whoever's in the playoffs or winning, we all have to rally behind them in
yeah.
Southern California.
Fierce competition. All right. We are going to open it up to the audience, too. And we're going to have roaming mics. We'd love to give you an opportunity to ask Del questions that you might have on your mind. We have a few questions. I have a list of questions. You answered almost every single one of them, so I'm rewriting quite a few of them. You've been very thorough. Do we have anybody who would like to ask a question?
Why don't we get you, Jeff, why don't we get you started off?
And by the way, if you ask a question, you'll get a pin. We are one pin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that would get you extra, cup of water.
I'll start.
Jeff, yes.
I'll start it off.
Please take it off.
We have a lot of issues, and what's really nice too is that Steve and OCWD represent the groundwater basin. We represent the imported water, so you have both points of view here. But one of the things that's near and dear to me is that Californians are being asked to conserve water again, all the way from the governor's office all the way down to our agencies, and I've been out in the community. In fact, with Santa Margarita's general manager, we actually did some presentations to some homeowners associations. It's very interesting when you get out to the public, because we can talk in terms and acronyms, but the public is actually smarter than we think. And some of them are retired engineers, people who've been in business a long time. The number one question I get is, we're being asked to conserve more water, and yet our rates are going up. How is that possible? So now you're asking me to conserve again. Are my rates going to go back up again? And I had, with the meeting with Dan, there actually was a woman, a senior citizen woman. She said, I'm trying to adopt the European model of filling up my bucket when I take a shower. She said, the only problem is I can't carry it out to the plants outside. It weighs too much. And it's very interesting how the public perceives what we're doing, and they're trying, but they can't afford it.
Yeah.
How are we going to do this going forward?
I mean, affordability is a big issue. And I'll tell you, if you look at investment in infrastructure, this is going to be costly. Being reliable, resilient is going to cost money. But we need to make sure that it's taken care of, and we're taking care of everyone, the elderly, the underserved, and how we take care of them. So I'm saying we need to continue doing the subsidy from the state and the federal government. You know, we had some money during, recently with COVID and the last budget. $1.3 billion was put in for low-income water and wastewater funding from the federal government and some money from the state. What we need across the country is about $8 billion to help. And the examples I gave, you know, we are willing to give money for food, telephone, energy subsidy, but we're not taking care of it. But to me, that should be important. But also, if we can bring money from the federal government and state government to invest in us, that would reduce the cost. And I'll tell people, if we're not conserving, the cost of not having water is too expensive. And that's the message that we need to figure out how we can tell it, because as we lose water, the cost is much higher. And as you know, if we go into allocation, we go into other things, it's going to cost, the water will go higher. And I'm learning more about also tiered rate structures, where there's a minimum level that's basically the cheapest water can pay for the lowest use. And if you start using more, there'll be higher costs for you. So if incentivize people to conserve, and I'm learning more about it, but I'm not sure if it's the right thing, how it fits in. But we need to start thinking of ways of incentivizing people. But I still think there's things we can do outside the homes to take action to stop maybe non-functional turf. And I know the challenge, and we need to do a better job to go out and educate our policymakers, especially in Sacramento, on what we're doing. Because, for example, and I've heard from our partners in MoDOC about, you know, if we're recycling in Orange County, if you're recycling water and recharging the system, the same water that you're trying to conserve is the same water you're using to recharge your system. So it's kind of a two-edged sword, right? So we're trying to get people to understand that if you can't just do one-size-fits-all mandates. And that's what we've been working really hard with the governor's office to ensure that that message is clear to them. And we'd rather have specific actions we all agree to. And on my staff and I know Dee Zink here and her team are working really hard on specific actions. So if we go to the zero allocation in the State Water Project, which will happen probably soon, we want the governor and others to give clear, specific actions for us to do and avoid this mandate of percent reduction. And hopefully they would listen to us and will see us, but we can't do it alone. We're going to need everybody to say it's not one size fits all. We've done our share, but we will do more, but let's not just make it difficult, because that water we're conserving inside the home, especially in Orange County, is going back into the system to use.
Let me bring my question back to Orange County. At the Orange County Water District, we, with our final expansion of the groundwater replenishment system, or pure water, as you like to call it, we can't recycle any more of the wastewater. We're maxed. Done everything we can do.
Sure.
We work with the Corps of Engineers to store more water behind Prado during the heavy storms. If there's another idea, we will go after it. But we've kind of done everything that we can do in our service area. What else can we do with the Metropolitan Water District to bring more to Orange County?
So some of the things that we're thinking about and working on, as we are moving quickly with our regional or pure water metropolitan down in Carson, the connection will come back to Orange County. It's going to come back to the system through the Upper San Gabriel, come around and come to Orange County. Another thing that we are looking at is conjunctive use of groundwater basins. And we know when we're going to have rain and we're going to have wet weather, and the snowpack is not going to be the storage, we're going to have water coming down the State Water Project. That's why the investment in restoring the state water project and making sure it's resilient and building storage. We're going to take some of the water from there and from the Colorado and put it in our groundwater basins and create agreements with the water masters so we can put it in and take it out, and there'll be some agreement, financial agreement. So we're going to be working hard on all these things. You know, one thing that we've done, you know, and I did not know until the other day, I was talking to Devin Aparahe from my team, that we have actually agreements that we put in Metropolitan to allow for anybody to use our system under emergency to move water around, which is, I think it's a great thing. But to me is how we can bring water, move water around to put it in storage, use the underground basins in partnership, and we've talked to our partners in the Inland Empire and Upper San Gabriel, other places. And so we're gonna figure out how you're part of the solution. And when we look at the gap, and we're gonna find out what's the shortest distance between demand and supply and build that. So, and it's gonna be demand, supply, storage, and we're gonna find out how we connect it. And what's gonna drive it is being cost effective and also the distance, because what drives the cost is always distance and traveling. So we're gonna be working hard on doing it, but my first priority at this point is making sure some of our systems that are reliant on one source of water, we're gonna do something quick to move it and provide them some relief quickly, as we have done in partnership with LA and others to shift water. But I wanna sit down and look for other options. But you're part of the solution. 50% of your water comes from imported.
That brings up I think to piggyback on your question, Steve, and certainly my first question too, because I know a lot of the agencies here are going to want to know this. And I always ask this at my board too, is how we pay for all this, because there's so many, and the prioritization too, because I know the Delta is very, very important, and all of us recognize that. But then also too, we are looking at storage, and that's another high cost, and then regional recycling.
Sure.
And so you've got three things there that are multiple billions of dollars. Sure. I know I might divide part of the room, but then now you've got a bullet train for about $100 billion. I wish I had $100 billion to play with, because I think I could fix, sure. I think all of us could. We all could regionally fix the issues here with $100 billion in our pocket, but we don't have that. So the realities are how we do that and then make it affordable to the public. That's going to be a huge communication effort on our part.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, we need to clearly define what we're doing and what it means to the economy. A lot of folks, I'll tell you, 2016, I helped develop the water resilience report for the U.S. under President Obama in 2016. And I'll tell you, I was so surprised when I was involved. It was under Homeland Security. And somehow they had the priority of Homeland Security. Priority is, number one was transportation, number two was electricity. They had a couple of things. And I had to fight to tell them that water is actually a Homeland Security issue. And they couldn't understand. And I said, you can't have a business without water. Our economy here thrived because of water. The jobs we create here is because of water. We're what the 6th, 7th largest economy in the world or something in California. So we are 10% of the population. To me, we need to make it a huge effort for more federal investments here, because I believe strongly that we need to do it. The other thing is we need to take care of our underserved community. The affordability question has to be addressed. And because for many times what we do is we cannot raise the revenue because we're concerned of the impact on the community, the elderly and others. So we need to figure out how we take care of them to ensure that we can actually put some cost to invest in the future. And it's going to be being transparent about it. But I heard somebody say something the other day is, you will not know the value of water until you don't have it. And I don't want to get to that point, but we need to do a better job in education on ensuring that's done. But it can be done, and we need to do a better job in doing it and ensuring that money is invested in us. We're fighting right now at the federal level to make sure that they keep funding for our large recycled program in the infrastructure bill and the funding. I mean, this is, for me, is crazy. So I was able to get Nevada and everyone to send letters to their senators, get the senators involved to say, what we are doing here, our board just approved agreement with the Arizona State and the Central Arizona Project to partner with us in our recycled project, the Pure Water Metropolitan, as Southern Nevada, because we believe that what we're doing here is helping resolve the issues around 7 states, 2 countries, and 5 tribes in the Colorado. It's going to help resolve the conflict between the environment, the agricultural use, and urban use in the Bay Delta and help us move forward. What we need to do here can help resolve a lot of these tensions. And I'm doing it, everybody else, we need to continue that message of education. But I think we need to pay for it through rates, but also through investments from our federal partners.
So I've got a couple questions, but before I do that, is there anyone in the room that has a question? I don't want to go back to that. I can't see much because these 2 bright lights in my eyes, so I guess no question. Yes?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Is it me? Yeah. Sorry.
Can't see.
I
Mark,
can't see a thing, so good.
yeah, no problem. Mark Donovan, GHD and chair of CalDesal. You talk a lot about new water supply, and I'm wondering if you can talk about how MET will support seawater desalination projects in future water supply portfolios.
Sure. In our service area, we have desal already in our system in San Diego and other places. But to me, what our vision is, desal is a tool in the toolbox, as everything else is a tool in the toolbox for us to close the gap between supply and demand. The question, as I mentioned, is the issue we have is how we connect supply and demand. So if the demand is here and supply is here, let's find the closest and most cost-effective way to do it. If desal is the way, then we do desal. But I don't want to build desal and say, let's figure out what we do with that water. So it has to be part of the plan, and that's, I think, my board and everyone has asked, let's develop an implementation plan to meet the gap. In our integrated resource plan that looked at scenarios right now, we're finishing that up end of this year, and it's going to show different scenarios. And the scenario that I'm looking at is a scenario by 2045 that we may have 1 million acre-feet of water shortage in our region. So that's the gap. And it could be 200 to 1 million, so we're going to look at the worst-case scenario. So plan for the worst, implement based on iterative process. So the question is, where do we bring that water from? Conservation is one, groundwater remediation and keeping groundwater going, recharge, recycled water. And in some areas, if it means that we cannot meet that demand, and the only way is to find a close solution, and that happens to be desal, that could be a solution. But we cannot just prejudge it. So it's a tool in the toolbox, and will be looked at as part of the comprehensive plan.
And as that tool in the toolbox, location is very important. You have to, but it's also one of the tools. It's of the hierarchy of reliability. It is the most reliable,
Sure.
And that's got to be part of the mix. Yeah. So I get a different question is, and I'll first I want to compliment the Carson project. It's a groundwater replenishment one similar to what we have, and Orange County taxpayers paid for ours, and you've got the infrastructure, and if you can get everyone else to do that as a part of it, I salute you for that. I think it's good, and that takes the tax burden off of Orange County, or on the rates off of Orange County. That's a good thing, and that should get approved. I think that's good. When I've looked through, in my personal opinion, when I've looked through the infrastructure bills that have water and the state with the governor, I see money being spent on a lot of little things. Mm-hmm. I don't see money being spent on large infrastructure water projects. And if we could bring more focus and attention to that, and maybe get the federal folks and the state to work and agree that we all want these things funded, because they're not getting funded. We also have to do the smaller things, but let's get the big things going, so that in 2045 we aren't out of water, and we can partner with their money, so it's not just out of our ratepayers.
Sure. Imagine if we get $3.4 billion from the federal and state to say we're going to fund the regional recycled water project, Pure Water Metropolitan, and fund it. What does that do to us? It's going to help us tremendously.
Absolutely.
For our ratepayers, right? And I think that's our issue. as a collective is we have little things. And I think we need to say, we go ask for small little things.
That's not a little thing.
No, we ask for smaller things instead of saying, let's put everything aside, let's focus on one or two asks. When you focus on one or two asks and put that before everyone, then you can push it and get people behind it. And I think we need to do that as a collective. So I agree with you, Steve.
Our board enacted a policy saying that.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. We need to find the top regional solution projects we all have to go behind and advocate for it and continue working hard to get that done.
That, Carson, it's not just Carson, it's your 18 million service area, and it also reduces your dependence upon the Delta and imported water. It has so many benefits that you just touched on earlier. You went through those.
There is also, we're looking at some quick solutions. I'm looking at scalping plants to do something quick in areas that we know there is a need, whether it's in La Cañada area or whether it's in Upper San Gabriel or whether it's in other places. Is there something we can do quick for a 5 MGD or by Beverly Hills that we can quickly come and say, okay, give us that much money for $150 million, and we can create 5 MGD in a local area, and that could be used in the area that has high demand. So we're going to be thinking long-term, but also quick fixes. But I agree with you. It's all about the messaging and how we can all come together to advocate for one thing.
Any more questions? So I've got a couple small ones quick. Was there a question?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Question right here at the back. First of all, thank you for the panel. Very, very informative and thought-provoking. I was wondering if the panelists could comment on the water energy nexus. We're talking about big infrastructure projects, moving water around, treatment, desalination. What are the energy implications of these big infrastructure projects, and especially with climate change? The last thing we want is we deal with climate change by increasing our carbon footprint and increasing our energy demands.
Sure. Let me start, if it's okay, Steve. In my office, in the general manager's office at Metropolitan, I've added a new office for sustainability, resiliency, and climate action. There'll be a new officer that's going to be hired, and their job is to ensure that everything we do in our service area for investments, infrastructure, is seen through the lens of sustainability, resiliency, and climate action. So reducing our greenhouse gases is critical to all of us. And we have a climate action plan that we're reviewing right now. But we need to figure out how we continue being sustainable as in our development. So, our energy that we use to transport water is mainly hydroelectric power, which is amazing. The concern we have is with the reduced levels of water, we're losing some of the generation. But also we have solar panels. There's ideas that we're floating around and talking about how we can maximize the use of solar energy across our region to help. And using efficient ways of operation. There's a lot of new technology right now available to use artificial intelligence and data to help measure how you're doing and to optimize your operation, both in pumps, in ensuring that you're not wasting energy. It's amazing the technology that's available. We need to use smart management to help reduce our energy demand and use renewable energy sources across our region, which is a whole state effort. But we're going to be looking at all of that as part of what we're doing.
That was well said. We need to be very mindful of that situation. I think I'll need to go into that. One point, Europe uses a lot of nuclear energy, and I think we shouldn't take it off the table. And I know that's a very controversial statement, but it's something that is clean and should be looked at more.
It's interesting how sometimes politics derail things. And I ask people never to throw things out until you really figure out what's the solution. In Los Angeles, as I was working for 32 years in the city, what set us back on recycled water and groundwater recharge is a mayoral campaign we all know where Toilet to Tap came out. That set us back 20, 30 years. And it was a political issue that was used, and it backfired and stopped the entire program. And now we're back to Operation Next in Los Angeles, back to cleaning up our groundwater, building recycled water for recharge and all that. But sometimes we label things and it hurts our ability to move forward.
Jeff, did you want to ask? I don't want to.
Yeah, we're about to go to lunch too, but this is actually a very appropriate question and actually kind of a fun question for you.
Yeah.
Little Bird told me that you're a chef, actually quite accomplished. And being a chef is not an easy job. It requires a lot of skills. How would you feel that translates into your management style?
Yeah.
Is it more like Hell's Kitchen or is it going to be like Chopped or, you know?
Yeah, I'm not Chopped kind of a
There's
guy.
so many.
First of all, I'm a chef, but also I'm an eater, as you can tell.
No.
I haven't seen a meal I haven't liked, but my management actually is the same. I'm all about inclusive, so I never look at recipes. I open the fridge, and I look what's in the fridge and start making stuff, and that drives my wife crazy. And she goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't know, but it'll be good." And it comes out good, and she says, "Can you make it again?" I was like, "I don't know how I made it." But to me, I can make lemonade out of anything. And to me, this is a chance for me to bring people together, to find what we have, build on the resources, and give you a beautiful meal. And I call it sustainable water.
That is a great ending to our talk. Thank you, Adel.
Thank you.
Hey,
That was good. That was good. We have a few more.
Thank you,
we-
Adele,
we-
for
a few more things
answering
here.
the questions. And
Okay.
I'd also like to thank PCL Construction for sponsoring this session.